Okay, today's topic, living without being affected by fear. But first, before going to today's topic, I want to again emphasize that this Exploring Your Reality series is for all of us, including myself, to explore our everyday perceived reality, to awaken to the actual reality of life. So our aim in the process is to see the reality of life. I'm not teaching you anything for you to memorize, and I'm also not teaching you a particular technique. Okay, what I'm doing is pointing you to a direction for all of us to look and explore with curiosity. Important thing is for you to look in the direction I point to in your daily life. So if you don't look and explore, you will not see what I'm sharing with you. So it's very important that you try to look and explore whatever I share with you. Okay. And also, whatever I share with you in this series, it's things that you already have, but you are not aware. One example is many Buddhists, including myself, think that we have to get rid of this self or ego to realize the truth of non-self, the truth that there's no permanent, non-changing self. But actually, in the beginning, by nature, all of us don't have a permanent, non-changing self. So basically, all of us have this characteristic of non-self already in the beginning, but we are not aware of it. So what I'm pointing to you is characteristic of that you already have. It's just that you're not aware. And if, for example, if you have a misconception that you have to get rid of the self or ego, you are actually making the self or ego more solid, more real, because whatever you resist persists. When you try to fight against it, you're building it, making it more real. So actually, what we are doing is what a poet called T.S. Eliot says, we shall not cease from exploration. And at the end of our exploration, we will arrive at where we started and know that place for the very first time. It is like what I mentioned before. Basically, what we are doing is basically going round and then finally realizing that what we already have. Okay, so this is also an important point. Now, today's topic about exploring living without being affected by fear, it's very useful in uncertain times of uncertainty like this, but useful for all of us, and including myself. For me, I feel that I have been sort of haunted by fear since I was a kid. It's always at the background of me. Only in the last few years, I learned that you don't get rid of fear. You change your relationship with fear. I will explain further as I talk about this. When you change your relationship with fear, then you are not affected by fear in your life anymore. Fear is still there, but you're not affected by the fear. So now for this fear, first thing is, like all problems, what we do in life usually is we start to find the solution. Like fear, we will try to maybe, make ourselves braver, or maybe we try to get rid of the things that cause us, the things out there that cause us fear. But however, do we realize that how we define the problem will determine the solution? So if we jump straight to the solution, you might get it wrong. When we start with the solution, we have already made the problem real, like what I talk about, getting rid of the ego. So it is better for us to understand the problem first, including this problem of fear, by going upstream to the source of the problem. Okay. So first thing is to understand that fear is not a thing, like a watch or a mouse. These are things. Fear is not a thing. So you cannot put fear in a box. You cannot give fear to another person or receive fear from another person, because it's not a thing. Fear is actually a process of scaring yourself. It's a description of a feeling we have when we scare ourselves. So now we will do an experiment. Now try to scare yourself. Think of something that you are afraid. I'll give you half a minute. Try to scare yourself. Think of something scary. Now notice, where is the fearful sensation in your body? Where is that fear in your body? Where do you feel it? Where is that sensation? Also notice that the sensation moves. Fear is just this sensation of adrenaline flowing when you scare yourself. And also, do you notice that nothing changed? You are still sitting in the same place, same position, but it's just your thinking change and you get scared. So do you notice that you are actually scared through your own thinking? Okay. Now, next point is, there are various kinds of fear. Fear of failure, fear of threat to life, fear of financial problem, fear of health problem, fear of loneliness, etc. However, one of the nature of all these fears come from thinking that by getting perfect circumstances, people or things, we have the security. We fear that if we don't get all these things, we will feel insecure and unhappy. However, if you think properly, even if we obtain what we think will give us security, we might still feel fearful and insecure. You might have millions or billions of dollars. Now they talk about billions. But if you think you can lose them anytime, you will still feel fearful and insecure. You might be living in a safe country, but if you think that you can be robbed or harmed at any time, you will still feel fearful and insecure. And in any case, there's not a thing that can make sure that you won't get sick, you won't die, you won't lose all your money. So if you are relying on the outside world, which is forever changing and beyond anyone's control for your security and happiness, you will always be fearful. So have you ever considered that what we are looking for, the happiness, the security, we are looking at the wrong direction? What if the peace, happiness, security that we are looking for is already within us? Then your solution to fear will change. So we'll watch a video regarding this inside out revolution. Zeten. We'll play the first video. Okay.
Most people think that experiences in life happen on a sliding scale. We try to find ways to get from misery to joy. It becomes a game of figuring out which stuff takes you towards joy and away from misery. At one level of consciousness, it seems as though the way to move to joy is by having the right stuff. Money, a good job, a great relationship, a nice home. You know, the shiny stuff we all can show off. But as we look deeper, we start to notice that there are plenty of people who have all the stuff but are still miserable. And we also know people that don't have any of it and are happy. So we begin to look deeper and we see that it's not the stuff but our actions that make us happy or unhappy. So the second level of consciousness becomes, well, if you do the right thing, you'll feel good about yourself. And if you do the wrong thing, your conscience will haunt you forever. The problem with this view is that we all know that more often than not, good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. So doing the right thing, although should be its own reward, does not lead people to happy lives. After all, it seems kind of unfair that much goodness can go unnoticed and bad things get the recognition they don't deserve. So the next level leads us towards internal things. We realize that it's not the things that happen to us, but what we think about what happens that determine our experience. That's why two people can see the same event and have two completely different feelings about it. So we do what we think is the right direction to joy, positive affirmations, and keeping a positive mindset. There's just one problem with that. We have the inability to keep the positive thoughts, and that becomes more work than we cut it out to be. We quickly realize that we really can't control the thoughts that come into our head. We can only choose the thoughts we decide to engage in. We don't really get to decide what pops up into our heads. Think about the times you wake up in the morning. Do you decide the first thought that pops into your head? Nah, I didn't think so. So wait a minute, hang on. Happiness doesn't come from what we have or what we own. Happiness doesn't come from thinking positive thoughts because we don't really get to choose the thoughts that come in. Well then, what does that leave us with? Aren't we kind of screwed? If happiness is outside of our control, what's the point of pursuing it? Well, what if you stop pursuing it? What if the more you pursue it, the farther you'll be from finding it? What if happiness can only be pursued indirectly? Okay, let's back up. Are you ready? The reason we can't find happiness from things, or positive affirmations, or trying, is because happiness is not a thing. It's not something that we can have or not have, successfully get or lose. All right, should I keep going? Okay, good. So after this realization occurs, some people decide, since we can't control our thoughts, well, we might as well not think at all. So we start to create complex routines like prayer, meditation, yoga, silent retreats, and all sorts of stuff to at least temporarily stop our thoughts. Now, don't get me wrong. Many times after the stuff above, we do get a sense of peace and well-being. That's for sure. The problem isn't so much doing that stuff. The problem is the time, dedication, and practice to get to that place. Now, it may seem like a small price to pay for inner peace, but what if you didn't have to do all that? What if there's another level of understanding beyond this one? Wait, what? All right, are you ready to take it to another level? Now, are you really, really ready? Okay, good. So we've decided that we aren't going to get happiness from things. It's impossible to control our thoughts, so we don't need to practice our positive affirmations. And frankly, I don't want to live in the mountains to get inner peace, so that doesn't have to be the answer either. Sitting in silence. So pay attention and draw this diagram. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound crazy, outlandish, yeah, even silly. Or it may sound so obvious that you may want to dismiss it. Now, what I want you to do is see above the words, and something will happen. Something amazing can happen. Now, I don't want you to believe me. I want you to see this for yourself. So let's start from the beginning. You see, we were born at peace, in tune with the infinite, in touch with our bliss. We are what we were looking for. We've always had this innate well-being. Even as babies, our very human needs from time to time interfere with that connection of this innate well-being. We start to feel physical pain and physical discomfort. Because we don't yet understand the source of this discomfort, we do the best we know to try to solve it by screaming bloody murder. Then, to our delights and amazement, someone comes and makes it all better. They feed our hunger, dry our bottoms, make noises, and entertain us with objects and movements. And before we know it, we're back in touch with that innate well-being. So it's natural for us to connect or attribute a return to well-being to the people or activities that seem to be causing it. We are okay because mommy loves us. We are okay because daddy protects us. And we feel okay because all the people around us. And of course, they all have our well being at heart. And that's why we feel okay. But then one day, we do something in our joy that mommy and daddy didn't like. We splash a color on a wall or cry when daddy's tired. And suddenly, the ocean of love we are used to swimming in is filled with sharks and other bad monsters. And before long, we quickly buy into the myth of love and well being living outside of us. But well being, happiness, connection, love, peace, spirit is your nature. The reason you can never consistently hang onto it when you pursue it from the outside is because it's already inside of you. It's like looking for your keys in the street when you've left them in the house. No matter how long and hard you look, you'll never find what's not there. It's like trying to bite your own teeth or grab your own hand. It's impossible to do because it's already a part of you. Okay, I digress. So, what if there's nothing to do but to start from the place that your true nature is your innate well being? What if you gave yourself one less job to go look for it if you already know it's part of you? What if when you're going through your low moods, your body's just trying to tell you that you're farther away from your innate well being, and all you have to do to acknowledge that is just to remind yourself? Maybe that's all you'll need. What if you didn't try to do something and allowed yourself to get comfortable in that space, to know that you already have it and there's nothing to get? Where would that lead you to? This may just be the start of your journey into this understanding. Maybe this is the place where it just starts to click. You know, those places where you start to get those aha moments, those insights and bursts of love that we can't explain. We just know that happens in that space of our true nature, our innate well-being. What if it's a place to start where you don't have to even start at all? Because as soon as you realize that you've already got it, there's nothing to try to go get. You see, that space of our true nature, our innate well-being, it's inside of us already. For so many of us, we've been searching around looking for our innate well-being, happiness and love from the outside world, that we've been missing the gifts that has been inside of us this whole time. It's not a matter of looking for it. It's a matter of acknowledging that you already have it. You see, you don't have to go from misery to try to get to joy. You just have to know that you have innate well-being. And it's only when you start to believe into those negative thoughts and make them real that you go into being in misery. Because those thoughts do not exist until you engage in them. And when you realize thoughts don't exist until you breathe life into them, things start to change. And once you get into that space, that's where miracles occur. That's where the revolution happens. It's time to be a part of that inside-out revolution. Are you ready?
Stop here. Okay. So from this video, I hope you all can explore the reality that the peace, happiness, contentment that gives us security is already within us, but we are not aware. So you just have to look at this direction. Now, what I will do is use what we have discussed in previous episodes to relate to today's topic of living without being affected by fear. Back to episode 1, to me, it's a very important point about thoughts, the missing link. When you can understand how thoughts work, it will help us understand fear better. Now, we think that we are living in the world, but we are actually living in our thinking of the world. Our thoughts not only create the world we live in, but also our identity, ourself. So it is not the circumstances, things, and people out there that make us fearful. It is our thinking that makes us fearful. So next time when you have fear, try to see that it's your thinking, like, What if I lose my job? What if I get COVID-19? What if I become homeless? What if I fail? I'm not good at speaking. I'm hopeless in direction, and so on. These are all thoughts. They are not, thoughts are not a problem until we take them as a fact, as an ultimate reality. Thoughts might feel very real, but they are not true. So the next time you're lost in your thoughts, try to tell yourself to explore the fact that thoughts might feel true, but they are not real. By challenging our belief through inserting the possibility that our thoughts are not true, we weaken the habit of believing in the thoughts. Every time you just have to look in this direction, it will weaken your habit of believing thoughts as ultimate reality. Just like rainbow looks and feel very like it truly exists, you really can't take the rainbow home and keep it. It's not a thing. Same with fear. So actually, in the world that we live in, there is no ultimate reality because everything is just relative, because everything we experience is made out of thoughts. So if you can see that, you won't hold on to your belief that much, because what you see might be true, might be right, doesn't mean another person seeing another angle is not true. I always use the example that my red color and your red color can be very, very different. So we can live in very different world. So actually, we are not afraid. You are not afraid of what you think you're afraid of. What you are afraid of is your thinking. So you're not afraid of, let's say, cockroaches, snakes, or death, and so on. What you're afraid of is your thinking about cockroaches, snakes, death, and so on. Why? If cockroaches or snakes are fearful thing, then everyone will be afraid of cockroach, or everyone will be afraid of snakes. However, there are some people who are not afraid of cockroaches. There are some people who are not afraid of snakes. So it means that fear is not a property of the thing out there. Okay. And one good example is this incident that is explained by a transcendental coach called this Michael American. He said one time there was this show called Put It to the Test show. It's actually, in this show, what he did was use neuro-linguistic programming to cure a phobia on spider. So they have 3 people with spider phobia hooked onto ECG and EEG machines, which test them before them seeing spider, their phobia, and after the treatment of neuro-linguistic programming to see that they have been cured from phobia of the snake. But what is interesting is not about the neuro-linguistic programming. It's what is interesting during that episode is the dress rehearsal. During the dress rehearsal, the stage manager came out with a clear glass container with nothing in it. And what the stage manager says that at the real show later, there will be spiders in this container. And immediately the ECG and EEG of all the 3 participants went crazy. All 3 of them had panic attack, seeing an empty glass container, thinking that there will be spiders in it. So it's not the spider that scared them. It's their thinking about the spider that makes them have panic attack. So this is a very clear example. So we can have thoughts, no problem. But as long as we don't use thoughts to scare ourselves. So we can say that fear is a feeling that we have when we scare ourselves through our thoughts. So fear is a feeling we create in ourselves by imagining scary things. So next time when you have fear, try to see that your own self is scaring yourself using your imaginary thoughts. Seeing that alone will help you. Now, another experiment. Try to think of something that scares you. I don't know, maybe snakes, maybe cockroaches, or lizards. Are there times where these things don't scare you? Are there like certain times where it doesn't scare you? If there is, it means that, it's not fear is not a property of the thing, because sometimes you are scared of that thing, sometimes you're not. But if you think that every time cockroaches scares me or every time snake scares me, then try to think that there are other people who are not scared of that thing. So if fear is a property of the thing, then everyone should be scared of that, whatever that thing is. So when you notice that fear comes from your thought and it does not feel good to have this thought, you will not continue with the fearful thoughts. A good example is you don't have to do anything. You just have to see that the fear comes from the thoughts and it's not comfortable having the thoughts. You will do the corrective action. An example is if you are sitting in a very uncomfortable position, you don't have to do anything. You will automatically, when you realize it, move to a comfortable position. So there's just something about knowing where fear is coming from will make that even the most scariest thing less scary, if you can see it comes from your thoughts. So that is something for all of us to explore with curiosity. So no matter what is scaring you, it's a reflection of your mind. Zizhen, can you play just the first slide? Are you there, Zizhen?
Yes, please wait.
Okay. Yeah, this slide will summarize a bit of what I'm saying. We are not our emotions. We are not anger, although we can have angry thoughts. We are not sad, although we have sad thoughts. We are not depressed, although we can have depressive thoughts. We are not fear, although we have no fearful emotions. When we realize we are not our emotions, and our emotions are a reflection of our thoughts, emotions including fear, we have a choice not to continue with our thoughts and allow the thoughts to naturally change by itself. And hence, the emotions will change by itself. Okay, now we will move to, okay, before we move to episode 2, just have this reflection that just because you have a thought, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to think that it's true. If you can remember this advice, it will help us in our daily life. Okay, we don't need that slide. Later on, we will have the other slides. Okay, now we go to episode 2 about natural well-being. Episode 2 is useful for our grounding. If you can always stay at the innate well-being that was talked about in the video, it will help us not get into our fearful thoughts. Okay, so being aware of our natural well-being is the key for living without being affected by our fearful thoughts. We already have this natural well-being. Okay, so we are naturally okay until we think we are not. So when we see our natural peace, calm, and contentment, then we do not need to grasp into anything outside. We do not need to look for something or someone to make us happy. We are already in solid ground, and even if we sleep, we know we'll be okay if we understand and know for sure that we have this natural well-being. Then we don't have any fear of losing anything because we have everything that we need. Okay, so when we wake up to who we really are, we don't have to cope with the scary world because the world isn't scary anymore. When we realize that we have this natural well-being, natural peace and contentment and happiness inside us, then the world doesn't look so scary anymore. So the fear won't affect us that much. So there's a big difference between trying to be a better person or less fearful person than waking up to the reality that you are not broken and nothing to be fixed. That fear is not, it's just through your thoughts. It's not part of you. And I want to tell a story. This is a real story of a old lady who is maybe in her 70s or 80s who had depression for 30 years. And she was seeing a psychologist called Dr. Bill Pettit, who actually shared this idea that all our fear, depressions come from our thoughts. So this Dr. Bill Pettit spent a few sessions trying to explain to this old lady that all our depression, sadness come through our thinking. But somehow the lady couldn't understand. And after a few sessions, few days, through few sessions with the lady, Dr. Peel Padet was like really exasperated, and like he wanted to really give up. And he looked at the lady and says, "Are you ever happy?" And to his surprise, the old lady said, "Yes." Then Dr. Peel Padet asked her, "Yeah, when?" And she says, "Every morning when I wake up, I'm happy." And Dr. Peel Padet was surprised and said, "Yeah, but what happened?" She says, "Then I started thinking all the reasons why I should be depressed, why I should be unhappy. Then I become depressed." The minute she said that, she caught herself and she realized that she herself think herself into depression, and she solved her problem immediately. All we got to do is just see how we get ourselves into trouble. We will be able to get out of it. It might, sometimes you still get back to the bad habit, but once you see it, that's it. So that's why that's the power of insight, the power of wisdom. Once you see it, your life change. And one of the problem with fear is that we think, one of the big problem with fear is we think that fear is a useful mechanism to keep us safe or to motivate us to take action. But we are wrong, because understanding is the most useful mechanism to keep us safe. When you know that if you step out of the edge of a tall building, you will die, you will not step out of the edge of a tall building. You don't need fear to stop you. When you know that if you step in front of a moving car, you will be smashed to pieces, you will die, you won't need fear to stop you from stepping in front of a moving car. Only babies who doesn't know it, then maybe you need to frighten them so that they don't run in front of the car. But once we grow up, through understanding, we know what not to do, what to do. So we don't need fear to protect us. In fact, when we have fear, our vision will become limited. We can't see clearly, and we are in a more dangerous position. And also, actually, when our illusory self get out of the way, we know what best to do, even in life and death situation. One good example I like is this story of Mara Gleason. In her book, One Thought Changes Everything, she described how when she was a teenager, her mother, she was in Argentina in a street where it's quite notorious, and while she was walking, two persons on motorbike came and pulled her to the side, and one of the mugger pointed a gun at her head. At that moment, sometimes when we are in a life and death moment, her miracle happens, as in her ego or herself disappeared, resulting in her experiencing her infinite self. Okay, I will go through this experience that she described in the book, but before that, I just want to point out that it's quite interesting that her name is called Mara Gleason. Of course, in Buddhism, Mara is the anti-Buddha. So our limited self is also called Mara. So in here, she described that how she get out of the Mara self and become the infinite self that saved her. Okay, let's play the slide. Then I will read out her experience. Zizhen. We'll play the rest of the slides. And then the world went silent. That voice that was always yip-yapping in my head just shut up. The one that is constantly chit-chatting about where to go and what to do, asking how am I feeling, how do I look, what do I want to talk about, what's next in life, yada, 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 so on and so forth, all day long, it just stopped. This is her describing what happened when the mugger points a gun at her head. Next slide. It was as if somehow it knew something happened. It knew something. I say it because in that moment, I felt myself, the self, go away, and some bigger intelligence kicked in that knew more than I did. I understood that Mara's little yip-yapper was irrelevant. There was nothing in the realm of me that had any knowledge of how to deal with this situation. Next slide. So without intentionally doing it, I simply shut up and got out of the way, or it The larger intelligence knew to put me to the side, much like you would push a clueless, distracted pedestrian out of the way of an oncoming bus to save their life. All my thoughts, all the noise that usually makes up the mind and the identity of Mara Gleason went quiet. Next slide. In that silence, something amazing occurred. I will try to describe it, but I'm going to fall short. Words cannot capture it. You see, now I'm back in my little yip-yapping Mara mind, trying to describe something that was far beyond the littleness of me. So please forgive me if it sounds silly or trite. I will do my best to be honest and clear about what had occurred with the language I have, but the experience was truly beyond me. When my head fell silent upon feeling the gun against my temple, the sensation that emerged in the silence was indescribably huge, like a wave of vast energy, not the personal energy that makes us feel rev up, but pure impersonal energy, beautifully quiet. The buzzing raw force behind life, like a kind of super knowing, not a brain knowing, but a much bigger spiritual knowing. Next slide. Without the separateness of my personal thinking, I was merely an energetic experience connected to the fabric of all energy, not an individual drop, but the whole ocean. I was not raised in a religious or even particular spiritual home, but I knew that what I was experiencing was the definition of a power greater than oneself, because myself, driven by my normal thinking, was gone. I think that's, yeah, okay. So, okay, can go to the next slide. I just want to sum up the experience just now. Actually, when she stopped getting lost in the thoughts, a bigger infinite energy took over her, and she can feel the quietness, the peace, and she can feel the mugger also go into that state. And then finally, she just looked at the mugger and said, it's all right. And the mugger just somehow let her walk away. Because when we are connected to this infinite state, there's no difference between you and me and anymore. So actually, it's not fear that helps us. It's when we get out of this limited self that miracle happens. And you must have heard of stories where mother can lift up cars when their children are underneath the car. So when we don't think, actually we can have infinite potential. So the peace and love and happiness that we are all looking for is always within us. No matter what happened to us, this peace, love, and happiness is always in the background. Next slide. I think that's the last, yeah. Since there's already peace, love, and serenity within us all the time, 24 hours, 7 days, we can be comfortable with uncomfortable situations and hence unaffected by any situations in life. If you understand and can see that this peace and love is always with us, even when fearful emotions come out, we are not affected by it because we can always put our attention on this peace, love, serenity, which is always with us. I think that's the last slide, isn't it? Or still one more. We are the thinker, not what we think. We are consciousness, not what we are conscious of. We are the awareness and wisdom of the universe, regardless of what we are doing and not doing. When we go to this awareness and wisdom, then infinite wisdom will do whatever needs to be done. I think that's it for the slide. Okay, I will go on. Okay. Now, I want to repeat that the problem with fear is we think it's a useful mechanism to keep us safe or motivate us to take action, but it is not. So I want to stress that point. Now, where are we? Okay, when we are grounded with this space within us, the natural peace within us, then you are not affected by fear. Okay, so the less time you spend scaring yourself, the more time you're in touch with this natural peace within us. But this space is always there. So you can also feel this natural peace now. Just take a moment. You'll be able to feel this. When you feel within you you'll be able to feel this natural peace and calm and happiness that's already within us. So every time in life, try to aware of it, okay? If you are not being able to get in contact with this space within you, being okay with it will help you to get into this space. Yeah, it sounds contradiction, but if you're okay, even not being able to feel it will help you to get into this situation. And also, fear, worry, and all that will actually make us less sensitive to danger. Imagine when you have an alarm set in your house, and every time your cat trips the alarm, you become very insensitive to the alarm. Even burglars come in, you might not be aware because you think it's the cat. So similarly, if you always live in fear and worry, it's not going to help you, okay? And like I say, the awareness of danger actually is built in all of us. Like in tsunami, when the tsunami happened in 2004, a few hours before that, all the animals has gone to the higher ground. They don't need fear or worry. They know through their instinct. So understanding and not fear keep us safe. We don't need fear or worry, but however, as long as you think that fear or worry is a good idea, you will continue to have fear. So you have to somehow see that fear and worry is not a good idea. Now we'll move to episode 3, where I talk about compassion. Now, what has compassion to do with fear? Compassion comes with the other 3 divine abidings of loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Fear can be said to be lack of love. If the person has abundance of love and compassion, he will not be affected by fear. Each and every one of us actually already have abundance of love and compassion, but we are not aware of it. In analogy, I can say that we are actually luminous electricity. We are the luminous electricity that run through all the light bulbs, but we think we are the light bulbs. And I feel that some people, including some Buddhists, think that self-love is selfishness. But do you realize that a person who is filled with love and compassion will not give trouble to others, and in fact will bring a lot of joys to other people? So that's why all Buddhist love and compassion practice starts with oneself, with ourselves first. In any case, you don't have to work hard to get this love and compassion because we are naturally born with love and compassion. There's a research done by Professor Richard Davidson from University of Wisconsin Madison that show that this emotion of love and compassion are inborn in human. His research shows that infant or baby would choose warmth and compassion rather than cruelty. So being compassionate always starts with oneself. If you can be patient and gentle with yourself, no matter what happens, you will be able to embrace fear and security. Just without adding extra interpretations, judgments, opinion, which are all thoughts, you will be able to get back to this natural state of you and take care of yourself and handle all situations pretty well. Then you can help other people. Now, episode 4, about what we are. Understanding what we are will help us in confronting, in handling fear also, in embracing fear. So one of the common fear is the fear of loneliness. The cause of this fear of loneliness is that we think each and every one of us is a separate individual being. If we start with this wrong view, we would believe that we can only feel secure if we connect with other people and if we are loved by other people. However, if you realize that all of us, all beings are connected and we are this energy of love, we don't have to make connection because the connection is already there. Then we can give the love that we already have. And like what one American coach says, Dr. Jack Spransky, that actually all we are peace, love, and wisdom, and the power to create the illusion that we are not through our thoughts. Our thoughts create the illusion that each of us are separate individual, but actually when you look at me, it's a process of seeing. Light hits me and reflects onto your eye, and you see an image in your eye. But actually, there's no I and you. It's through our perception that our ideas, our thoughts, that we have created this separation. Again, back to, I like to use this metaphor. Each of us is like a light bulb, and there's a common electricity running through all of us. However, we only identify with this light bulb, not the power, the electricity power that runs through all of us. And also, another analogy is like each of us, we think we are like one wave, you know, in the whole big ocean, trying to understand the whole ocean. But if we let go of the thoughts, we realize we are actually the whole ocean. Okay, we are not this one single wave. If you quiet down yourself, you'll be able to feel this interconnectedness with nature, with all beings. If you realize that there is no this permanent non-changing self, if you realize this non-self nature of yourself, then you will realize that there is no person having this fear. This is the most powerful way to handle fear. That's why Arahant don't have fear, because when you realize that there is no person, non-changing person here, then there's no problem with fear. There is only fear when you have, I have fear of this thing and that thing. But when that permanent I don't exist, then fear is not a problem anymore. Okay, and another way to look at it is, we are not fear, because when you have fear, you can be aware of fear. So as long as you don't identify with this fear, then there's no problem. You can stay with this awareness. Like now, you can be aware of the computer in front of you. You are not the computer. So when you're aware that you have fear, you are not the fear, and you don't have to identify or associate with that fear. Okay, now we move to episode 7. Pain is unavoidable, suffering is always optional. The way to deal with fear or any painful or difficult situation is by facing or embracing the situation instead of resisting, ignoring, or suppressing it. The more we try to run away from fear, the more toxic and stronger the fear or painful situation becomes. It is only by facing, understanding the fear, by being present, by being tender with our fear, we can understand its nature. We will realize that it's not as scary as our thinking make it to be if you try to confront and look at the fear. If we can be okay with whatever situation, including being okay with feeling not okay, we will not have to suffer our fear or any other situation. So if we can embrace whatever situation, then there's no problem with this fear. Then our life can be a learning experience. We can be grateful for all the highs and graceful for all the lows. And the problem is also, a lot of our fear also come from the wrong understanding of our life. We are always fearful of our sickness, like we are fearful of falling sick. But do you know that a lot of our sickness are a sign of health? Do you know that fever is a sign of health? It's our body burning toxin. Do you know that vomiting is a sign of health? It's our body throwing up poison. Do you know that diarrhea is a sign of health also? It is our body purging poison. So the problem is fear comes, one of the reasons fear comes is we think we are broken, but actually we are not. We are golden, we are a miracle, because our body knows through its own wisdom, now knows how to take care of our health. Now we move to episode 8, Thoughts creates our world. If we are not creating mountains, we don't have to climb them. If our thoughts don't create fear, we don't have to solve our fear. We don't have to make mountains our molehills. Everything becomes easier for us if we don't make it harder through our thinking. So a lot of times in life, we make things harder through our thinking. A good example that I like to share is there was this university where all students who did the experiment, there's one chemical experiment, would fail at least the first 5 times. But somehow there's one new student who managed to successfully do the experiment in the first time and for the next 5 trials. And after that, they realized this is the first student that no one told him that this experiment is supposed to fail. No one is supposed to be able to be successful in the first time. Because this student doesn't have this idea, he's not limited by his thinking, he managed to successfully complete the experiment. So we are often limited by our thinking, including by our fear. Episode 9, Infinite Potential, Infinite Possibilities. Fear limits our potential and possibility. If you can see that, you will also not dwell in fearful thoughts so much. Our potential and possibilities are usually limited by us making our future using our limited past memories because we think we are very good at predicting the future. We like to plan in detail many steps in advance, but we don't know that what experience we are going to have. No one can predict like COVID-19. And every experience is never the same. We have SARS before, but SARS and COVID-19 is very different. So the problem is we try to use our limited past and worry about the future and plan for the future. So there's a quote from Mark Twain, who is a father of American literature. And I love this quote. He says, "Some of the worst things in my life never, ever happen. It's only in our thinking." So, but also, naturally, we are all born to be able to adapt and live in the present moment. Like the current condition, we might be struggling, but we know how to adapt. So if you can have this faith and confidence in our wisdom, you have much less fear also. And also, if you can understand that we are not made to live in the future because the future doesn't exist. Future only happens now. Future is a concept of our thoughts. If we stay in our natural wisdom, the infinite potential, infinite wisdom inside us will enable to select and protect ourselves. We don't have to be fearful not knowing the future because we don't live in the future. Okay. And I must admit, from my own life, I spend a lot of time worrying about future, which never happens. Because this is what we do. We spend a lot of time worrying, what if this happened, what if that happened? But I can assure you 90% of the things don't happen. Now, episode 10, the last episode that we had, all problems, one cause, one cure. All problems without exception, which means including fear, are created by thoughts. So this is one cause, and the one cure is not to take our thoughts seriously. They feel true, but they are not real. Also often, when we think that the problem is a solution, but actually quite often, sometimes we think something is a problem, but actually the problem can be a solution to some other problem. Like people who take drugs and all that, we think that's a problem, but that's a solution to them not being able to live, to face their restless thoughts. So similarly, fear could be a solution for us for solving other problems. Yeah. So when we see this, we won't try to solve the fear. We try to solve what's the underlying problem. Now, I want to stress again that all our fear, most of it comes from living in the past or in the future. But the past cannot create the present experience. Only the present moment thinking of the past create the experience. The source of experience is never in the past. The past is the memory we create in the present. And I've shared this yesterday on Friday, that every time you think or talk about the past, you are recreating a new version of the past. And you are storing it in a memory, then bringing out the second version when you talk about it, and you will add new perspective, add salt and pepper, and store the third version. So you are changing the past all the time. The past, which we hold as so real, actually is changing all the time. It's not real, because every time you talk about it, you only explain one perspective and you add things as you talk about it. So the source of experience is never in the past, it's never in the future also. Future is the imagination that we create. So if you stay right now here, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's no reason to be fearful. So that is a very important point. And there is this, I want to share this story of how if you can see that you are keep recreating the trauma in the past through your thoughts, you will stop creating it and you won't get affected by your trauma anymore. This is a story of there was a lady through one time, this Byron Katie, who was doing an interview to a radio talk show, and there was a lady who called, a teenager who called in, and this teenager had a very bad traumatic experience when she was young. From 6 years old to 12 years old, she was constantly raped. And when she talked to Brian Katie managed to get her to see that every time she tried to think about her past experience, the trauma, she's actually recreating that experience and reliving it, and she don't have to do it. By understanding this, she just snap out from that trauma. So actually seeing that, we don't have to relive our past trauma, whatever trauma we have in the past or whatever fear we have in the past, we will be able to get out of it. And now the next, one of the last few things that I want to share on fear is that a lot of our fear comes from having the belief that life is about avoiding bad experience and trying to get to experience all the good experiences. However, life is about both bad and good experiences. Without sadness, there's no happiness. Without bad, there's no good. Bad, good, happiness, sadness are all two sides of a coin. We can't separate them. So if you want to take one half, you can, that means you only want to live half life. So if you change your attitude to see that every experience is an opportunity for us to explore our reality of life, then it will deepen our realization of how life works. And we will have less fear of facing all our life experiences. In fact, my best monk friend, Kachayana, a Swiss monk, used to say in his life, he gained the most insight into life when he was with people that he has lots of trouble with, because that's when we learn most. But I'm not asking you to look for trouble. If trouble comes, by changing your attitude towards the trouble, you can use it for learning instead of getting upset with it. And also, all good and bad experience is subjective. And I would like to tell a story to illustrate this. We always think that something is bad, something is good, but it's very subjective. It's very subjective. So this story is, imagine that your family win tickets to go in to watch a concert. You and your husband or your wife and your kids. And then on the day you're supposed to go to catch the flight, somehow there's a huge traffic jam. And you think, oh, this is a very bad experience. But somehow it's a miracle you managed to get through the traffic jam. You arrive in the airport on time. But your kid just throw tantrum at the wrong time, wrong place, just keep dragging you, and then you got to drag your kid to the boarding gate, and he just refused to move, and you got to drag him, and then finally when you reach the boarding gate, the gate is closed, the plane is taking off. You get very angry with your kids, very upset that because your kids throwing tantrum, you didn't manage to get the flight, and you wanted about to slap your kid, and then you look out the window. When the plane took off halfway, boom, the plane exploded. Suddenly you realize that your kid saved you, and you're very happy, hugging your kid, and now your kid becomes the best kid in the world. So what is good, what is bad? It's subjective. We'll play a video to show you this. Okay. So what is good, what is bad? It's very subjective. Your kid who caused you to lose the flight might be the worst kid in the world, but it suddenly become the greatest kid in the world because it saved the whole family's life. Okay. Now, next thing is about fear of failure. A lot of people, including myself, we are always very afraid of losing face. We are afraid of failure. So I know from my life last time, I always try not to do things that I think will have any possibility of failing. But then when you have this attitude, you are not learning. Because I give the example of if you are in standard 6, every time you take standard 1's exam, you will definitely pass. You won't fail. But what's the point to keep taking standard 1's exam? So fear of failure, it comes from self-doubt, and it prevents us from having this infinite intelligence in us. But without failure, there's no learning. All successful people fail many times before become successful. And I'm sure every one of us had heard about this quote from Thomas Edison. I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work in making the light bulb. So failure is, to me now, it depends on the eye of the beholder. Without a thought, it's impossible to fail. And it's quite interesting. Only, recently, a few months ago, I only realized from one American coach that he doesn't have this idea of failure, because to him, everything is just a learning curve. If you didn't manage to get the things done properly, it means that you have not learned enough. So you just keep learning with passion. One day you will be able to do it. So there's no such thing as a failure in his mind. Now, after you have understood and realized what I've shared today, what is important is not whether you will still react to things that happen to you. It's not important whether you still feel fear, anger, sadness, insecurity, depression. What is important is what you attribute your reaction to. If you can see that your fear, anger, sadness all come from your thought, you have the choice not to continue your thoughts. When you don't continue with your fearful thoughts, or you're angry, or you're sad, or you're depressed thoughts, you will have new thoughts and new feeling. So you are just a thought away from happiness, peace, calmness, security. You don't have to do anything. You just have to show up and notice that you are lost in your thoughts. You don't hold on to them. New thoughts will come. New feelings will come. Okay. The problem is we are not aware. We are too busy, living in the past or making plans in the future. So life become what life is like, what happens to us now without us noticing it, because we are busy in the future or past. That's why when you try to stay in the present, aware what's happening now, then you will be able to see yourself getting lost in your thoughts or your emotion. When we are fighting or wrestling with fear, we are keeping that fear with us. If we stop fighting the fear, then this fear is not something separate for us. Fear is a label we put on the sensation in the body. We make it into a thing. This fear is actually our thought. It's our shadow created by ourselves. We are much safer if we don't fight with this shadow. And I think this line is quite useful if you can remember it. You don't have to be fearful, but if you are fearful, it is okay. Why? You don't have to be fearful because all your fear comes from your thought. But if you are fearful, it's okay because you didn't know that you are lost in your thoughts. You are innocent in that sense. So when you understand how fear works, it will challenge your relationship with fear. It will change. You will challenge fear and you will change your relationship with fear. So fear becomes now, instead of something scary, it becomes an indicator to let you see that you are scaring yourself. When you can see that you're scaring yourself, things look less scary. And you will have the intelligence system in you to guide you out to your natural peace and calm. And without being affected by fear, your life will open up and you will experience more freedom and possibility. So hope with this sharing, you will be less affected by fear. Fear will be always there. It's not our job to totally get rid of fear until one day when you can see that there is no self, then there will be no fear, because fear comes with I am fearful. But until then, as long as you can see that fear is the creation of our thoughts, you will be less scary. Okay, we will stop here, and questions or sharings. Anyone who have questions or sharings are welcome. So that's good. Please go ahead.
Hold on. Sorry. Yeah, clicking the wrong button. Good evening, Bhante. Just want to kind of share a little bit. This is before I kind of know more about Buddhism, and something happened to me when you mentioned a few things this morning. It really clicked on me that we actually have our innate calmness to actually handle fear if it comes. And, you know, because I was the person that always like to plan ahead and like to be in control, either due to the nature of being a mom or a nature of working, you know, as a consultant. And 4 years ago, I live in Houston, Texas, US. So there's a big flood called Harvey hurricane, and it wiped out my house. So can you imagine when you are in a good life and suddenly the next day you are homeless? So, but at that time, I was not in town. You know, in fact, I sent my second son to college, so I was stuck that I couldn't come home. But so only my husband and my, at that time, only 11 years old daughter that is at home. They have to manage to escape out from the house with a dog. And then, but when we come home, when you see that a lot of things that damage and you don't have a place to stay, it will be very fearful if you imagine you're in that way. But for whatever reason, in that experience, you know, just to kind of cut the story short, that every step we have to go through to rebuild the house. And somehow I was not fearful. I was just busy, you know, make sure that things are done what I need to be done. And, you know, somebody have to take care of my daughter, so that me and my husband has to do a lot of different things. And then, you know, you have a hard time to get contractor to come and help you. But I got a lot of help, you know, in between. And every day I wake up to have that gratitude that of what I have, rather of thinking everything I don't have and what a mess in the house and all the junk that is outside the house. And at that moment, I really learned a lot. You know, at that time, I don't have a lot of knowledge of Buddhism, frankly speaking. But for whatever reason, I built a relationship of compassion and somehow, you know, telling myself it's okay, just step by step to build. So after 9 months, and be gratitude every day with what we receive, the help from others that is not in the flood, whether I was given a 6 months, 3 months apartment to stay, and or, you know, get help from people from my company. And, you know, after 6 months, when the house was finished, rebuilt, and interesting was just my daughter's birthday. So I invite some of the friends, you know, her friends' parents come. And, you know, the house is not intact, still have a lot of things, you know, but then we managed to invite some friends. And then they look at the new build in our kitchen and everything that we planned to do years ago, we didn't get to do. And everybody, you know, tell me what, it's strange. It's like, I wish my house is flooded, so I have my new kitchen and new bedroom and everything. It was just like, strange, you know, so it really, you know, that gave me a very big lesson of seeing a lot of people actually have compassion. And when you are a lot of people in the same boat, that, you know, even that I have to wait for contractor for a long time, and somebody, you know, kind of like, you might not have everything you planned because, you know, whether the material you need to get to rebuild your house or the people you need to get is not always you can get it because everybody is flooded, the entire neighborhood. So in that case, you just have to be patient, and then you just have to trust your innate calmness. And that point, it really kind of thrives on what you said, right? When, even the hardest thing happened to you, and you can trust your innate, wisdom a little bit and be calm. Somehow, you have gratitude every day, to get you started. Even little thing that, whether you get help from here, even, one day I stay at a friend's house and she just gave me, an egg and a bowl of oatmeal for breakfast. I feel so grateful. It's like, it's just a simple breakfast. But then at that time, it's like, wow, this is what I have. It's just grateful. I have a breakfast and I have a car that can drive my daughter from the apartment to the school every day and didn't die on me. Because I don't have help. If you die on me, she just have to miss school. And that little, kind of the gratitude really let me get through that 9 months, and then, be returned back to home. So I just want to share, sometimes if you don't think too much, say, oh, I don't have all this now, what to do and everything. You just kind of keep doing it and trust yourself and trust your gratitude and compassion and love that other people give to you. It was wonderful. So I just want to, hopefully that helps if people have a hardship. And I have other stories to share as well. Somehow suffering comes to my life a lot, and I take each opportunity as a learning, as my good teachers. As I share a couple of times, my daughter is my best teacher because she gave me a lot of hard time, but then, instead of choose to escape, I choose to face it. Without the fear, still have fear. Sometimes the fear still come. Like yesterday, one of the school in Houston, have a shooting incident. That if you think, if one of your kids are in that school, how would you think, right? But then it doesn't bother me. When I watch that, it does have a fear to think about, oh, if my daughter is in that school, what would do? But it doesn't happen yet, right? If it happened, then it happens. Then, I even talk to her. It's like, yeah, it happened that day I have to die. I have to die. That's it, right? Then you are not scared. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sok, for the sharing. That's very good for people to know. That's very good sharing. Next, Lilian Chua.
Sadhu, Bhante. Regarding this innate, and thank you for recapping back the past talks. I think it was very useful. It is very useful. Regarding the innate well-being topic you started off today's discussion, I sense that it is presented in a very positive form, like innate well-being in its most positive, as being a newborn baby. Innate is very positive. But is it possible that it is not so positive, Bhante? Can it be not so positive? Because you know why? I mean, we believe in karma, right?
Yeah.
And we have many past lives.
Yeah.
And we carry and we accumulate merits or demerits, whatever. So is it possible that with all this interplay of our past lives, our merits and demerits, is it possible that, for example, myself, when I was born, is it possible that my innate well-being is not so positive?
No, you always, to me, I don't look at, I don't look at karma as a punishment and reward. A lot of people look at karma as punishment and reward. I look at karma as a learning curve. And recently I listened to an American, I like this a lot. He says that to him, karma is like something that you need to do again and again until you get it right. It's like a university who is very compassionate. It allows you to sit the exam again and again until you pass the exam. So karma is not a punishment or it's conditionality. Because of certain conditions, certain things happen. So we do have this innate peace and calm and all that within us, but each one will have to face different circumstances, conditions. Even though you might be, even if you are born handicapped, you still have this innate being. It doesn't affect you from this innate being. Innate well-being, as in your mental health. Okay, that's, yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, Bhante, I think I will take that as an advice.
Yeah.
Although
okay.
because you did ask us to explore in what they call in Buddhism, we have to explore what they call the teachings, right, of the Dharma. So, but for the time being, yes, I think I will take that into as an early advice. Thank you very much, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yeah, try to explore. Don't take my words as the truth. This is not just for her, for everyone. That I always encourage people that all of us, including myself, we are learning, we're exploring. And karma is a very interesting topic, but I would like to hopefully point to the direction that people don't look at karma as a punishment and reward. Try to look at karma as a learning curve, as in when we fail to do something right, we not, I don't know the right. If we can't master something, the conditions will come again and again for us to perfect our mastery. Okay, anyone, any other questions? Just before I forget, just now the point on gratitude by Sok, that's very important. If we have this gratitude in our heart for everything that we have, actually even being able to wake up in the morning that you are not dead, that's already a lot of gratitude, to be grateful for. And I think I've shared before, but I like this sharing that monks are being told when we are ordained, I think some monks forget that you only need 4 things to survive. You need food, and you are supposed to take a bowl and go around begging for food. But if someone were to invite you for food to a meal, that's a miracle. That's something to be very special. If someone invite you to the house for food, otherwise you're supposed to go around begging food. Second, you need a place to stay. You're supposed to stay under a tree. But if someone offer a roof, that's a miracle. That's something very special. You're supposed to be grateful. The third one, clothing. You're supposed to go to the cemetery, the dead bodies, the clothes, stick up pieces of rags and sew it together for a rope. But if someone were to offer ropes, and now many people offer rope, that's a miracle. That's very special. That's like you're extremely grateful for that. And finally, you only need medicine, and you're supposed to take cow's urine for medicine. But if someone gives you real proper medicine, that's a miracle. So every day is a miracle for us monks. So yeah, lots to be grateful if you can understand how much we have. So anyone, any other questions? I thought I saw some questions, MC.
Bhante, there's a question from Chan Wai Hong.
Yeah.
Even though we understand that death is unavoidable when time comes, but when at dying moment, we are still afraid and very fearful of death. So how should we face that?
Okay, this is a good question. Why we are afraid? One of the things is because we think that it's going to be a bad thing when we die, but we don't know. It's an unknown. If we are comfortable with unknown, that will help us. This is using wisdom, that if you are comfortable with not knowing, in life we are very afraid of, sometimes we are very afraid of not knowing, and we try to project our idea. When we don't know something, we try to imagine what it will be like. That gets us into trouble. But if we can stay with the not knowing, actually we can have infinite potential. So this is the best way. But easier way is when someone is dying, try to make the person comfortable. Like if they like music, then play music for them. If they like rock music, play rock music. I don't know. If they like heavy metal, play heavy metal. Just do whatever we can to try to make the person happy and at ease. Then it will be easier for the person to face death. Of course, the best is if we could prepare much earlier, now when we are healthy. So one of the difficulty things in the dying moment, one of the fear that will get us into fear is pain. So if you could, at this now when you're healthy, you could embrace pain, then you will have less problem with pain when you are dying. When I say embrace pain means, I always share this, that every time when we have pain, it makes a big difference if you're in your thinking is, my hand is very painful, maybe it's going to break, or there is a sharp sensation in the hand. Just this change of thinking is a very big change in your feeling, in your emotion. So try to learn to deal with the pain now. And if you can see the pain, that it's not a thing, it will come and go, it's a sensation, you will also be able to accept the pain more. And if you can make friends with the pain, and I've shared many times about my frozen shoulder, actually the pain don't disturb you anymore. But you cannot make friends with the pain hoping the pain go away. You have to make friends with the pain, accepting the pain and willing to be with the pain forever. Then the pain don't affect you anymore. Okay, so you have something else to share.
Sorry, I don't mean to take a lot of time, but it kind of get to me when this sister asked the question. I used to be also quite afraid of death, right? Because I kind of say that, when you have kids and you feel like you're very attached to them, what happened to them if you die when they're young? And then, especially when you're sick, I remember when, I was quite sick when my second son was just graduate from the kindergarten, and I was afraid. But then I didn't let that kind of bother me too much. And so I do some kind of remedy to improve my health, because at that time you can see, when you have problem with your health, is your body tell you to slow down and to stop a little bit. So I did, and I get rid of my kind of disease without any medicine, which is good. At the same time, I also feel that, one time 15 years ago, when my daughter has to, go through a surgery, a very important surgery, that I was in such a fear. It was like, the whole world collapsed, because she's only a few months old and she has to have an open heart surgery. And if you put it yourself in my shoes as a parent, you will be scared to death. And I was scared. I scroll her every day. I was crying, thinking about, what will happen in the surgery and things like that. So until I think she gets my fear from my bad thinking. And then she got sick 3 days before the surgery date. So I called the hospital. They say, sorry, she cannot do the surgery because she is coughing or running nose. So you have to be very clean before you can do surgery. So at that time, it's a wake-up call for me. And I'm like, why? And it seems that to you it's very urgent, right? If you are the parent. So then I have no choice. So I choose to calm down. So I calm down, of course, then I can see, she was, we have to reschedule to another day. So at that time, I was not very nervous anymore. And she was, well, get ready for the surgery. But the day before the surgery, the hospital called me and said, well, there's another sicker child that need the surgery slot. Can you give it to her? And that moment, I don't know what I was thinking. I said, go ahead. I can put myself in that parent's shoes, even if I'm ready for my daughter, but I think she is urgent, so she needs it first. So I let go that slot without fear, saying that, would I be regret if, I have to wait another 3 more weeks? And then when the third time is her turn, we just go in with very calm mind and without fear, just, have the trust on she's in good hand of a good doctor. And hopefully she has her own innate calm that she can overcome that difficulty. And it turned out, the 10-hour surgery went out successfully. So at that point, I was really grateful again to, that moment where fear doesn't really get to me. Well, it gets to me at the beginning, to be real, right? But then somehow, I don't know, it's my innate calmness or whatever. that get me through that. So that's what I want to share. Sometimes, I just want to say that with this session, I start to, explore and believe that even at that time, I don't know about, you have the innate calmness, but that does, and I explore it, sometimes when I have fear or I have some anger, that I trust that, but, go ahead and explore. It was very fruitful for me. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you. So actually, whether we know gravity exists or not, it still exists. So same, whether we know or not, whether there's innate wisdom, innate calmness in us, it's always there. So yeah, it's just that we are not aware. Okay, there's one question. Winston says, Bhante, what's the cause of pain during the dying process? It depends, because some people, they might die of diseases. I'm just mentioning that. But some people might not have any pain when they die. So it depends on I'm just saying that just in case if you are dying from diseases or any cancer or whatever, then it's important that if you learn how to embrace pain. If it's natural death, there might not be pain. Okay, anyone, any questions or sharing? Very good sharing from Sok. Anyone, any sharings or questions that you have? If not, we'll end here. Any last question or sharing? Okay. Unmute yourself, ma'am. I can't pronounce your name. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Bhante.
Yeah.
Since the COVID started at the beginning,
Yeah.
I suddenly developed this chronic respiratory problem. So, and for the last 18 months since during COVID, it has been bothering me, and I've been hospitalized 3 times. So I wanted to listen to this evening session because I wanted to help to overcome my fear. So I feel that every time, a lot of my fear comes from my relating it to past experience, that when it first happened, I felt like that, and then this happened. So now when I feel that I have the same kind of sensation of the thing, I worry that, oh, it might be a flare-up.
But every experience is different, no?
Yes, exactly. But it's a constant fear lurking behind me in my mind, that something happens, oh, I fear for the worst. But the funny thing is, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. Yet when I had that cancer diagnosis, I had no fear. I didn't think about the consequences. I just went on with the treatment and just accepted everything. So I kind of don't quite understand, why can't I handle this current situation like I can handle the cancer situation?
Oh, every situation is different, and our condition, our mind state changes all the time. So it could be many reasons, but the important thing is to keep seeing that every time you have fear, it's from your fearful thinking. You will still come up fearful thinking, but as long as you keep seeing that, it will affect you less. Our job is not to cut off all fearful thinking. Our job is to change our relationship with the fearful thinking. Instead of treating it as a reality, treat it as a story created by ourselves. If you can see that, then it becomes less and less scary.
Yeah, I have to work on that.
Yeah,
I have to work on that. And
keep exploring
look
that.
at the thought. Yeah.
The next time when you feel fearful, try to see that it's from your thinking. Without thinking, you can't have fear. Now, if you're not thinking about your sickness, you cannot have fear.
Yeah.
It's only through our thinking that we have fear. Try to see that. I'm not saying you to stop. When you try to stop it, it will become more real. If you try to stop the thought, you are thinking the thought is real, then it will become more real. So what you have to do is to see that it's not real. It's your feeling of fear comes from this thought, and this thought is created by you. You don't have to keep scaring yourself. Yeah, because whatever happens, it happens. If you get, if you need to see a doctor, you need to see a doctor. Like what you thought the last time when you had cancer, somehow it didn't kick in this time, but it's just conditionality. The last time you don't have fear is because you understand that whatever happens, it happens. If I need to get treatment, I get treatment. There's no point fearing and worrying about it. But somehow this logic didn't kick in this time for some reason. We don't know.
I think also because I also was using this time, I'm using Western medicine and also with alternative. And both their philosophy differs vastly. So this, like, I'm always in conflict. Oh, should I be doing this or should I be doing that?
Okay, so what you do is, when you are in a calm state of mind, you will know what best to do. When you are lost, then don't make decision.
Yeah. So just recently, all out of the blue, I just decided, oh, I think I can't work with both system. Both system is creating a lot of stress on me. So I decided, okay, I'll drop one system. I dropped the alternative and just stick to the Western, even though I like the holistic approach. Because holistic approach was like too restrictive, lots of things I can't do, and then it keeps worrying me and stressing me.
Okay, then then you know what best to do for yourself.
Yeah.
But worrying and fear doesn't help.
I'm learning that. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, we'll end here. We'll just share merits. We'll share merits with all devas, dharma protectors, guardian deities, share merits with all sentient beings, share merits with all family members, relative, friends, especially all our departed family members, relative, friends, and ancestors. May aspiration always with the wise, avoid the foolish, be free from great hatred, delusion. At the end again, share merits with all beings, wishing all beings an equal share of merits. Etawata chamehi sampadam punya sampadam sabe deva numodantu sabba sampati sitya. Etawata chamehi sampadam punya sampadam sabe buta numodantu sabba sampati sitya. Etawata chamehi sampadam punya sampadam sabe sata numodantu sabba sampati sitya. Idame nyatina hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idame nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idame nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yawa nibbana patiya. Idame punyang asawa kaya wahang hotu. Idame punyang nibbana sa pacayo hotu. Mama punya bagang sabasatanang pajema. Te sabe me samam punya bagang labantu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante. There's an announcement here. Brother Hao, could you share the slide, please? Right. So every Friday, we have this awareness of Dharma in daily drama series on every Friday, 8 p.m. So our next sessions will be on next Friday, which is 8th of October, starting from 8 p.m. So we have these meditation sessions and sharing and Q&A as well. So you're welcome to join us on every Friday. And yeah, that's all. And thank you everyone for your participation today, and have a good night.
Thank you. Sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu,
sadhu.
sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante.
Sadhu.
Sadhu, Bhante.
Sadhu.
Good night.